My name is Claire Bennett. I'm 34 now. But I was 31 when Ethan broke my heart with one text message, so calm, it almost felt rehearsed. He wrote, "Marisa has no one else. I'm moving in to be her nurse." I remember where I was when I read it. Conference room, B. 7th floor. Glass walls. Stale coffee. People shuffling papers around a long table like the world hadn't just tilted under my feet. I read it once, then again, then 3 more times, waiting for the words to rearrange themselves into something less final. They didn't. Ethan and I had been together for 4 years by then. We weren't dramatic people. We didn't scream in parking lots or post cryptic quotes online. We were the kind of couple people described as solid. We met through mutual friends at a birthday dinner. Moved in together after a year. Talked about marriage in the soft, practical way adults do when they think time is on their side. He worked as a physical therapist. I worked in software development. We had a decent apartment. Decent routines. Decent plans. Sunday groceries. Thursday takeout. A shared calendar. A savings account we both pretended wasn't secretly a wedding fund. And then there was Marisa. Marisa was Ethan's ex-girlfriend. Though he never said it like that. He said, "We grew up together." He said, "She's basically family." They had dated in high school. Broken up when college pulled them in different directions. And somehow, stayed close, in a way I tried very hard to respect. At first, I did respect it. He told me when they got coffee. He told me when she was having a rough week. He told me when she got a new job. When she lost that job. When she needed advice about insurance. The honesty made me feel safe. I told myself jealousy was ugly. And I didn't want to be ugly. Then Marisa got sick. It started with fatigue. Then pain. Then appointments with specialists who use long words and careful faces. Some rare autoimmune condition. Progressive. Expensive. Unpredictable. Ethan changed after that. Not all at once. That would have been easier to name. It happened in inches. First, he visited her twice a week. Then he started bringing meals. Then he drove her to appointments. Then he stayed late because she was scared after a bad test result. Then he stopped coming home for dinner. She has nobody else. He told me one night, standing in our kitchen, with his jacket still on. I was at the stove, stirring pasta neither of us would really eat. "I'm not asking you to abandon her." His jaw tightened. "Then, what are you asking?" "I'm asking where the line is." "She's sick." "Claire." "I know. She could get worse." "I know that too." "So what do you want me to do? Tell her to call someone else?" "There are professionals for this. Nurses. Home health aides. Social workers." "She can't afford that. Her insurance barely covers treatment." I turned off the stove because the sauce had started to burn. The smell filled the kitchen. Sharp and bitter. "And what about us?" He looked at me like I'd said something selfish. That look stayed with me longer than the argument. After that, Marisa became the third person in our relationship without ever sitting at our table. Her name lived in Ethan's phone. In the late-night calls. In the laundry he forgot to switch over. In the dinners he missed. In the empty side of the bed, when he came home after midnight, and slid under the blankets, smelling faintly of hospital soap. I tried to be patient. I tried to be kind. I tried to remember that compassion was one of the reasons I loved him. But compassion can become a door someone keeps walking through, until there's nothing left inside. The week before he left, I asked him if he still wanted our life. He was folding one of his gray hoodies into a duffel bag because Marisa had a treatment the next morning, and he wanted to stay nearby. He paused. But he didn't look at me. "Of course I do." "Then why does it feel like I'm the only one living in it?" He zipped the bag slowly. "That's not fair." "No," I said quietly. "What's not fair his feeling like I'm competing with a dying woman, and still somehow losing. His face went cold. I regretted saying it the second it left my mouth. But I also knew it was the truest thing I'd said in months. He left that night without kissing me goodbye. 3 days later, I got the text. Marissa has no one else. I'm moving in to be her nurse. I know this isn't what we planned, but I can't leave her alone in this condition. I'm sorry. I'll come get my things this weekend. No phone call. No conversation. No chance to ask whether 4 years meant anything compared to one crisis. Just a message. I didn't reply. People filed back into the conference room around me. Someone asked if I was okay. I said yes, because that is what you say when your life has cracked open and you're still wearing a work badge. That weekend, Ethan came with his mother to collect his things. I stayed in the bedroom with the door closed while they packed. I listened to drawers opening, cardboard boxes dragging across hardwood, his mother whispering in that careful tone people use around grief they helped create. At one point, Ethan knocked softly. Claire. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the floor. I just want to talk for a minute. I didn't answer, because if I opened that door, I knew I would beg. Not loudly, not dramatically, but I would ask him to choose me. And I could not survive hearing him refuse in person, so I stayed silent. Eventually, his footsteps moved away. When the front door closed, I waited a full minute before coming out. The apartment looked wrong. His books were gone. His shoes by the door were gone. The plant he always forgot to water was gone. Half the furniture. Half the closet. Half the future. All that remained was space. A few days later, he texted again. I'm sorry it ended this way. I hope you understand. I couldn't live with myself if I didn't do this. I stared at the message until my screen went dark. A week later, another one came. Can we at least talk? I don't want things to end with us not speaking. That was when I blocked his number. Not because I hated him, because I still loved him. And love, when it has nowhere to go, will eat you alive if you keep feeding it. The first months after he left were not heartbreak the way movies sell it. There were no screaming breakdowns in the rain. No dramatic rebirth. No sudden glow-up montage. There was only quiet. I came home to a half-empty apartment and felt the silence waiting for me like a person. I worked late because the office lights were easier than the dark rooms at home. I took extra projects, weekend calls, emergency fixes. Anything that kept me from remembering how Ethan used to hum while brushing his teeth. Friends tried to help. He made his choice. One said, "You deserve someone who puts you first." Another told me they were right. But being right did not make the bed less empty. 6 months after he left, I ran into one of his coworkers at a coffee shop. Her name was Dana. She recognized me before I could pretend not to see her. "Claire," she said gently. "How are you managing?" Her expression softened in a way I hated. I heard what happened. "I'm sorry. It is what it is." She hesitated, gripping her coffee cup with both hands. I probably shouldn't say this. Then don't. But she did. He's struggling. Marissa's gotten worse. He's basically a full-time caregiver now. Barely sleeping. Barely working. I looked past her at the rain streaking the window. That was his choice. I said, "I know. I just thought, maybe you'd want to know." "I don't." She flinched. "Right. Sorry." After she left, I sat there with my untouched coffee and felt something I couldn't name. Not satisfaction. Not pity. Not even anger. Just numbness. Because Ethan had sacrificed us, and now the sacrifice was costing him too. But that didn't bring anything back. It only proved that some choices hurt everyone. A year after Ethan left, I sold the apartment. Not because I couldn't afford it, because every room had become a museum. The kitchen still remembered the arguments we never finished. The hallway remembered rushed kisses before work. The living room remembered movie nights, Christmas decorations, lazy Sundays, and all the ordinary moments that hurt more than the dramatic ones. I realized one morning that I was paying a mortgage to live inside a ghost story. So I left. I bought a small house across town, far from our old routines, far from the coffee shop where Ethan used to meet Marissa, far from the streets that felt haunted. The house wasn't impressive. It wasn't the kind of place people photograph for social media, but it was mine. For the first time in a long time, every choice belonged to me. I painted the walls without asking anyone's opinion. I converted the spare bedroom into a home office. I bought furniture because I liked it, not because it matched someone else's taste. And then I got a dog, a golden retriever. His name was Cooper. Ethan had always been allergic to dogs. During our relationship, I'd occasionally mention wanting one someday, maybe later. He'd say, later never came. Now there was nobody left to tell me no. The day I brought Cooper home, he immediately ran through the house like he'd owned it for years. He knocked over a lamp, chewed one shoe, then fell asleep with his head on my foot. I laughed harder than I had in months. That was when I realized healing wasn't some dramatic breakthrough. Sometimes healing looked like a clumsy golden retriever snoring beside your couch. Work continued to improve. I received a promotion, started leading larger projects, took a few vacations. Nothing exciting, nothing extraordinary, just life moving forward. I went on dates occasionally. Some were pleasant, most were forgettable. There was a lawyer who talked exclusively about himself, a dentist who spent an entire dinner discussing cryptocurrency, a fitness coach who criticized my dessert order. After each date, I'd return home to Cooper and think, honestly, this is the better company. Friends kept trying to set me up. You need to get back out there. I am out there. One coffee date every 3 months doesn't count. I would smile and change the subject. The truth was, I wasn't afraid of relationships. I was afraid of investing years into someone who might eventually decide I came second. That fear lingered longer than I liked admitting. Still, time has a way of sanding down even the sharpest edges. Eventually, thoughts of Ethan stopped appearing daily, then weekly, then monthly. The pain didn't disappear. It simply became less relevant. Like a scar, you stop noticing until someone asks about it. 3 years passed. 3 full years. By then, I was 34. My life had settled into something comfortable, predictable, peaceful. I woke up early, walked Cooper every morning, worked from home 3 days a week, went to the gym, saw friends on weekends, read books, watched documentaries, lived quietly, and for the first time in years, I genuinely liked my life. There was another reason I liked it, a reason nobody, except my closest friends, knew. About 2 years after Ethan left, I'd met someone. His name was Ryan Mitchell, 36, architect, patient smile, the kind of man who listened completely when you spoke. We met at a charity fundraiser after arguing over the last available parking space. He claimed he'd arrived first. I claimed possession was 9/10 of the law. We spent 20 minutes teasing each other before either of us entered the event. 3 days later, he asked me to dinner. I almost said no. Not because I wasn't interested, because I was terrified. Ryan seemed to understand that immediately. He never pushed, never demanded, never rushed. While dating him, I noticed something strange. I stopped waiting for disappointment. With Ethan, I'd spent the last year of our relationship feeling like I was slowly losing him. With Ryan, I felt chosen. Every day, consistently, without competition, without conditions, without uncertainty. A year later, he moved into my house. Not officially, not on paper, but his clothes gradually occupied half my closet. His coffee mug appeared beside mine. His toothbrush settled next to mine in the bathroom. And somehow that felt more meaningful than any formal announcement. Life was good. Not perfect. Just good. Then everything changed on a Thursday evening. 3 weeks ago. It was around 6 o'clock. The sun was setting. I was finishing work while Ryan prepared dinner downstairs. Cooper suddenly started barking. Not his normal excited bark. The protective one. I frowned. Nobody was expected. The barking intensified. I stood and walked toward the front door. The second I opened it, time seemed to hesitate. Ethan stood on my porch. For a moment, I genuinely thought I was imagining him. 3 years. No calls, no message, no accidental encounters. Nothing. Yet there he was. Older. Thinner. His shoulders slightly stooped. Dark circles beneath his eyes. The confident, energetic man I once knew seemed diminished somehow, as though life had been slowly draining color from him. Standing beside him was a little girl. Maybe 2 years old? Dark hair. Large brown eyes. Tiny fingers wrapped around his hand. She looked up at me curiously. Completely unaware, she was standing inside the ruins of someone else's history. Neither of us spoke. The silence stretched. Then Ethan finally whispered, "Hi. Claire." The sound of my name in his voice hit harder than I expected. I folded my arms. "Hi." He swallowed. "Can we talk?" My instincts screamed. No. Every survival mechanism I developed over 3 years told me to close the door. Instead, I asked, "Why are you here?" His expression tightened. "Please." The little girl tugged gently on his sleeve. "Daddy?" The word caught me off guard. My eyes moved to her, then back to him. He looked exhausted, desperate, scared. For reasons I couldn't yet understand, I should have ended the conversation there. I should have protected my peace. Instead, curiosity won. And curiosity is dangerous, especially when it arrives wearing the face of someone you once loved. I stepped aside. 5 minutes. Relief flashed across his face. "Thank you." The little girl immediately noticed Cooper. Her eyes widened. Doggy. Cooper. Freighter that he was. Instantly adored her. Within seconds, they were playing together in the foyer. Ethan watched them for a moment, then looked around the house. The photographs, the renovations, the furniture, evidence of a life he knew nothing about. "It's nice," he said quietly. "Thanks. You've done well." I didn't answer, because compliments from people who abandoned you arrive years too late. He cleared his throat, then finally said the words that explained everything. "Marissa died 2 months ago." The room seemed to become very still. I had expected many things. That wasn't one of them. For a moment I remembered the woman who had unknowingly helped end my relationship, the woman whose illness had consumed everything around her. I felt sadness. But it was distant, like hearing about a tragedy in another city. "I'm sorry," I said. His eyes lowered. "Thank you." The little girl laughed from the floor while Cooper rolled onto his back. The sound felt strangely out of place. A child laughing in the middle of a conversation about death. Then Ethan placed a hand on the girl's shoulder. "This is Lily." I nodded politely. "She's beautiful." A complicated expression crossed his face. She was Marissa's daughter. My confusion deepened. What? Marissa had her with someone she dated before things got really bad. I stared. He continued. "The father disappeared." Pause. "Marissa got custody when Lily was a baby." Another pause. "I helped raise her." I looked at the child, then at him. Something about this entire conversation felt like pieces from different puzzles being forced together. How long? Almost 2 years. 2 years. 2 years. Raising another woman's child. 2 years building a life I knew absolutely nothing about. Then he said the sentence that made my stomach tighten. "After Marissa passed, Lily only had me." A strange feeling crept over me. An uncomfortable premonition. Like standing at the top of a staircase, in complete darkness. You can't see the fall, but you know it's there. Ethan met my eyes, and suddenly I understood. Before he even spoke, I knew why he'd come. I knew why he looked desperate. I knew why he'd driven across town. After 3 years of silence, the realization settled over me like ice. And for the first time since opening the door, I wished I hadn't. The moment the realization hit me, I felt something strange. Not anger, not heartbreak, not even fear, just disbelief. The kind that arrives when someone's expectations are so detached from reality that your brain struggles to process them. Ethan stood in my living room. Lily sitting on the floor beside Cooper, completely fascinated by the dog's wagging tail. Meanwhile, I already knew what was coming. I could see it in his eyes. The desperation, the hope, the assumption, and somehow that assumption hurt more than anything else. He took a slow breath. Claire. There it was. The tone people use when they're about to ask for something enormous. I folded my arms. What? He looked toward Lily, then back at me. I've been trying to figure out what to do. I said nothing. He continued. Everything happened so fast after Marissa died. A pause. The medical bills. Another pause. The funeral. Another. Taking care of Lily. Still, I said nothing. Because I wasn't interested in the setup, I was waiting for the punchline. Then it came. I realized we're still a family. For several seconds, I honestly thought I'd misheard him. What? His voice became stronger. Us. He gestured between us. And Lily? The room went completely silent. Even Cooper seemed to stop moving. I stared at him, waiting, expecting him to smile and admit it was a terrible joke. He didn't. Instead, he continued. We loved each other. I blinked. We built a life together. Another blink, and I thought maybe. His voice cracked. Maybe we could do that again. There it was. The thing he'd driven across town to say. The thing he'd apparently convinced himself made perfect sense. 3 years. 3 years of silence. 3 years raising another woman's child. 3 years building an entirely separate life. And now he was standing in my house, expecting me to resume a relationship he'd abandoned. As though someone had simply pressed pause, I looked at him carefully, trying to understand how he had reached this conclusion. You're serious? Yes. His answer came immediately. That somehow made it worse. I laughed. Not because anything was funny, because sometimes disbelief escapes disguised as laughter. Ethan looked wounded. Claire. No. He froze. No. No. The answer felt almost too simple. 3 years of history. 1 syllable. He stared at me, confused, as if the possibility of rejection had never occurred to him. I don't understand. That made me laugh again. A short, humorless sound. You don't understand. I thought. I know what you thought. His face tightened. Then tell me. So, I did. You thought I'd still be waiting. He looked away. That told me everything. Because he wasn't denying it. He genuinely had expected that. Somewhere in his mind. I had remained frozen, exactly where he'd left me. Like furniture stored in an attic, waiting to be uncovered. Waiting to be useful again. The realization made something inside me harden. 3 years ago, that would have shattered me. Now it simply disappointed me. Ethan. His eyes met mine. You left? His jaw tightened. You chose her. It wasn't like that. The familiar phrase. The same defense from years ago. I shook my head. It was exactly like that. She was dying. And, he stared. And, you still left. His face flushed. I didn't leave, because I stopped loving you. Then why did you leave? Silence. Long silence. Finally, he whispered. Because she needed me. I nodded. Exactly. His expression twisted. You don't understand. No. I pointed gently toward myself. You don't understand. He looked confused. So I continued. You think this story is about who needed you more? His shoulders stiffened. But it isn't. I took a breath. It's about who you chose. The words landed. I saw them hit. Because deep down, Ethan already knew the truth. He just didn't like hearing it out loud. 3 years ago he'd chosen Marissa. Maybe for noble reasons. Maybe for compassionate reasons. Maybe because he genuinely believed it was the right thing to do. But he still chose. And every choice closes another door. That's how life works. He rubbed his face. Exhaustion showing through every movement. I sacrificed everything. The statement hung in the air. I looked at him. Really looked at him. The hollow eyes. The worn clothes. The tired posture. And for a moment, I actually felt sorry for him. Then he said the worst possible thing. "I thought you'd understand." I stared, then slowly nodded. "I do understand." His face brightened slightly, until I finished. "I understand that you sacrificed our relationship." The hope disappeared immediately. "I understand that you spent years building a life with someone else." His mouth opened, closed, opened again. No words came out. "And I understand that now you're lonely." The truth hit harder than anything else I'd said. Because it was true. Marissa was gone. The crisis was over. The purpose that had consumed his life had disappeared. And suddenly he was standing in the aftermath searching for somewhere familiar to land. Unfortunately for him, I was no longer available. He lowered his head. "I made mistakes." I almost felt bad. Almost. Then a voice drifted down the hallway. "Claire." "Ryan." My heart instantly relaxed. Ethan's head snapped up. I hadn't mentioned Ryan. Hadn't needed to. The footsteps grew closer. Then Ryan appeared at the end of the hallway. Casual t-shirt. Bare feet. Reading glasses still on. The picture of domestic normalcy. He took one look at Ethan, then at me. Then immediately understood something was wrong. Not the details. Just enough. "What happened?" I smiled slightly. And suddenly I knew exactly what to do. "Come here." Ryan walked over. I reached for his hand. Without hesitation. He took mine. The simple gesture said more than an hour of conversation ever could. Ethan went completely still. His eyes moved from our joined hands to Ryan's face. Then back to me. Color drained from his cheeks. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Finally, Ethan whispered, "Who's this?" Ryan glanced at me, giving me the choice. I appreciated that. Then I answered, "This is Ryan." A pause. "My boyfriend." The silence that followed felt almost physical, heavy, dense, unavoidable. Ethan looked like someone had just pulled the ground out from under him. "Your boyfriend?" "Yes." The single word destroyed whatever fantasy he'd been carrying. I could see it happening in real time. The realization, the shock, the embarrassment, the understanding, all arriving at once. Ryan squeezed my hand gently. A silent reminder that I wasn't facing this alone. Ethan stared. "You live together?" I nodded. "Yes." The answer seemed to hit him even harder, as though he hadn't merely expected me to be single. He'd expected me to remain emotionally available, waiting, preserved, ready. I almost pitied him. Almost. Then he looked around the house again, and suddenly I understood something. For the first time, Ethan wasn't seeing my house. He was seeing my life. The one I'd built without him. The one he'd never imagined would exist. For a long moment, Ethan simply stood there. The color had drained from his face. His eyes moved from me to Ryan and back again, as if he were trying to force reality into a shape he preferred. Ryan remained calm beside me. He wasn't possessive. He wasn't confrontational. He didn't need to be. The fact that he was standing there at all said everything. Ethan swallowed. "You never mentioned him?" I almost laughed. "You disappeared for 3 years." His shoulders dropped. His voice faded. Ryan looked at me quietly. "Do you want me to leave you two alone?" I appreciated him asking. Not because I wanted privacy, because he respected me enough to give me the choice. I shook my head. "No." Ryan nodded once, and stayed exactly where he was. Ethan noticed. Another small realization settling over him. This wasn't a fragile relationship. This wasn't someone worried I'd run back to my ex. This was trust. The kind we'd spent years building. The kind he and I had lost long before he moved out. I thought maybe... Ethan started, then stopped. Ethan. What exactly did you think would happen?" His eyes drifted toward Lily. The little girl was sitting on the floor, giggling, while Cooper nudged a toy toward her. For a brief moment, the innocence of the scene almost broke my heart. Then Ethan answered, "I don't know." That was the first honest thing he'd said all evening. I was overwhelmed. I can see that. I didn't have a plan. Clearly. His face tightened. I just thought maybe there was still something between us. I looked at him carefully. Once upon a time. Hearing those words would have shattered every defense I'd built. Now they felt strangely distant. Like listening to a song I used to love years ago. Familiar, but no longer mine. There isn't. The words landed softly, but they landed. His eyes closed briefly. When they opened again, I saw grief there. Not grief for Marissa. Not entirely. This was grief for a future he'd imagined and lost. I'm sorry, he whispered. I believed him. For the first time in years. I genuinely believed him. Not because he wanted something, not because he was trying to manipulate me, but because reality had finally caught up with him. I know. A tear slipped down his cheek. He wiped it away immediately. Embarrassed, Ryan quietly looked elsewhere. Giving him dignity. I respected that. Most people think strength means winning arguments. Sometimes strength means allowing someone to fall apart without humiliating them. After another minute, I spoke gently. You should go. Ethan nodded. No resistance. No bargaining. No dramatic speeches. I think he finally understood. The door he'd walked away from years ago was no longer open. Not because I hated him. Because life had continued. He walked toward Lily. Kiddo. Time to go. The little girl looked disappointed. Dogged. We have to leave. She pouted. Cooper whined. Traitor. I crouched beside her. It was nice meeting you. Lily. She smiled immediately. Children are incredible that way. They don't carry the weight adults do. They don't understand regret. Or missed chances. Or consequences. They just live in the moment. Bye. She said. Bye. Then Ethan picked her up. For a second our eyes met one last time. There was 1,000 conversations inside that look. Apologies. Memories. Regret. Question. But neither of us spoke them aloud. Some things don't need words. He turned, walked to the door, and left. The door closed. The house became quiet. For several seconds nobody moved. Then Ryan released a slow breath. Well? I laughed, despite myself. Well? We stood there listening to Cooper sniff around the front door. Eventually, Ryan pulled me gently toward the couch. You okay? I sat beside him. I think so. You sure? I leaned back, trying to process everything. The surprise, the shock, the strange sadness. Mostly the finality. I expected to feel more. Ryan squeezed my hand. What do you feel? I thought about it, then answered honestly, relief. That surprised even me. But it was true. Because for years, there had been one question buried deep inside me. What if Ethan came back? Now I knew he had come back, and I still chose to move forward. The uncertainty was gone. Ryan kissed my forehead. I love you. My chest tightened. Not painfully, comfortably. The way home feels, after a long trip. I love you too. A week passed, then another. I assumed I'd never hear from Ethan again. I was wrong. One evening my phone lit up with an unfamiliar number. The message was short. Claire, I'm sorry for showing up like that. I wasn't thinking clearly. You didn't deserve that. I stared at the screen for a long time. Ryan glanced over from the kitchen. Ethan. Yeah. What are you going to do? I thought about blocking the number immediately. Then I thought about all the things left unsaid. Not because I wanted him back, because unfinished stories have a way of lingering. Finally, I replied, it's okay. A few minutes later, another message arrived. Do you hate me? I looked at the question. Such a simple sentence. Such a complicated answer. Then, I typed the truth. No, I don't hate you. Several minutes passed. Then, that's somehow worse. I smiled sadly. Maybe. Another pause. Then his next message appeared. I really did love you. I stared at those words. Once upon a time they would have meant everything. Now they felt like an artifact from another life. I know, I answered. I loved you too. The typing bubble appeared, disappeared, returned. Then, I made a mistake. I leaned back against the couch, reading those words twice, 3 times. Not because they surprised me, because they no longer mattered. Eventually I replied, you made the choice you thought was right. That doesn't make it a mistake. Not automatically. Another pause. Then, are you happy? I looked toward the kitchen. Ryan was arguing with Cooper about giving back a stolen sock. The sight made me laugh. Then I looked back at my phone. Yes. I am. A few moments later, his final reply arrived. Good. You deserve that. And just like that, the conversation ended. No dramatic reunion. No declaration of undying love. No second chance. Just honesty. The kind we should have given each other years earlier. A month later, I ran into Ethan at a grocery store. It happened completely by accident. 1 second I was reaching for cereal. The next we almost collided at the end of an aisle. He looked healthier. Still tired, but healthier. Lily sat in the shopping cart, munching on crackers. When she saw me, her face lit up. Doggy lady. I laughed. Apparently that was how she remembered me. Hi. Lily. Ethan smiled faintly. She talks about Cooper sometimes. I'm honored. The conversation was awkward at first, then surprisingly easy. Not because we were close, because we weren't. We were strangers carrying memories of people we used to be. "I got a job," he said. "That's great. Daycare is expensive." "I've heard," he chuckled. The first genuine laugh I'd heard from him all day. Then his expression softened. I wasn't lying. "About what?" "Loving you." I nodded. "I know." He looked at Lily, then back at me. I just chose wrong. The words hung between us. I considered correcting him, telling him life wasn't that simple, but I understood what he meant. So instead I said, "We both ended up where we belong." His eyes lingered on me for a second, then he nodded, maybe for the first time completely accepting it. 6 months have passed since Ethan appeared at my door. According to mutual friends, he's doing okay. Working full-time, raising Lily, building a life from scratch. Slowly, carefully. Apparently he's even started dating someone, a single mother, he met through daycare. Someone who understands the responsibilities he's chosen. As for me, Ryan officially moved in. We changed mailing addresses, merged some finances, started talking about engagement. Not because we're rushing, because we're building something real. Sometimes, late at night, Ryan asks whether Ethan's return changed anything. The answer always surprises him. It did. How? It reminded me what being chosen feels like. Ryan smiles every time I say that. Then, he kisses my forehead and tells me he'll always choose me. And I believe him. Because love isn't measured by promises. It's measured by presence, by who stays, by who builds a future with you, instead of expecting you to wait for one. I'm 34 years old now. I live in a house I love, with a man I love, and a golden retriever who still steals socks. I don't hate Ethan. I don't regret loving him. I don't even regret losing him. Because sometimes losing someone teaches you exactly what you need to find. The silence after Ethan saw Ryan standing beside me said everything words never could. I'd moved on. He finally understood it. And that understanding set both of us free. Some chapters aren't meant to reopen. Some doors aren't meant to unlock again. And sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for yourself, and for someone who once broke your heart, is allow the story to end where it should, not with bitterness, not with revenge, just acceptance. Because life keeps moving. And eventually, if you're lucky, so do you.